guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I am finally comparing my 2007 Yamaha R6 to the current generation. Behind me is a 2020 Yamaha R6. Huge shout out to the guys at Champion Car Company. One of the employees owns this really sweet Raven Edition R6, so check them out down in the description below. So basically, we're gonna go over some of the specs on these two bikes, how they're styled differently, and then of course, I'm gonna be riding the new R6. I have over 5 years experience on my bike, so I'm really excited to see what the new one has to offer. We're gonna ride it on some fun roads and see how much different it is. So starting with some of the performance specifications, both of these bikes have a 599cc liquid-cooled inline 4-cylinder engine. On the old school 2007 R6, this cranks out 125 horsepower at 14,500 RPM. The newer R6 actually has less horsepower at 117, and it makes that power at the same RPM. As far as torque goes, the 07 produces 43.8 pound-feet of torque at 11,500 RPM. The new R6 pumps out 46 at 10,500 RPM. So we have higher top end on the old bike, however, a much lower torque curve on the new bike. Both of these R6 top out around 160 miles per hour and are running on 4.6 gallon fuel tanks. The new bike is rated at 42 miles per gallon, while the old bike is rated at 33. However, I do consistently get around 40, so I would say that's going to be about identical and depends on your riding style. Both bikes also have an identical seat height at 33.5 inches, and the wheelbase is 0.2 of an inch shorter on the 2020 R6 at 54.1 inches. Wet weight on the new R6 is 419 pounds, and the old R6 is 415 pounds. As far as the suspension goes, the new bike does have more adjustability both in the front and in the rear. The front forks are 43 millimeters, while the old bike has 41 millimeters. They both feature a single rear shock, and all of the shocks have 4.7 inches of travel. So there's some of the performance specifications for these two R6s. It's interesting to note that the newer one actually has more torque down low, but less horsepower. So if we do a mini pull today in today's video, it'll be interesting to see the differences between these two bikes. So now let's talk about exterior styling. I gotta say, the new generation R6 looks so cool. I love the DRLs up front. They look like a shark's face. They look super sleek. You can see the two projector beam headlights. One is your headlight, and of course the other is the high beam. Looking at the previous generation R6, it still looks like a nice modern motorcycle. I don't find it to look outdated like the one before this. It still has two nice headlights, and it still has a nice sleek front end design, but just not quite as sharp. I love the gold front forks on the older bike, however the new one is all blacked out. Taking a look at these side profiles, the new R6 does not have the turn signals on the fairings anymore. They're now located up on the side mirrors, while the older bike has them on the side. The fairings do look pretty similar. They have a lot of sharp lines to them and large openings to allow cooling to come right out of the radiators. So they're both kind of similar looking from the sides. The gas tanks also share a very similar profile. However, you get a cool little vent design up front on the newer bike. The main rider seats look pretty similar between the two bikes. However, you're going to notice a huge difference on the second seat. On the older R6, it has a much larger cushion there. Still not the most comfortable for passengers, but it is definitely a doable seating position. The newer bike is about half the width, making it probably not quite as comfortable. And then as far as storage goes, the new R6 practically has zero storage back here, while the older bike, you can fit a phone and a wallet. And then moving to the tail end of the bike, I love how the newer R6 has the integrated LED rear brake light and these super cool cutouts that go into this area. That is a really nice sharp design, looks very aerodynamic, and I really like how it's styled. Of course, you are sacrificing this seat comparing it to the older bike. You can see just how much more space we have on the seat. This is relatively sharp. It does have a cool look. The second generation of this same bike, the 2007, once they upgraded it to the 2008, they did add some sharp style to this area. But moving to the rear, the swing arms also look nearly identical, and they both feature the side exit exhaust with the mini exhaust tips. And then looking at the handlebars on the older bike, we have your kill switch and engine starter on the right, then your high beams, horn, as well as the turn signals on the left. We can go ahead and turn on the electronics. We have a central mounted tachometer with a shift light to the right, digital speedometers on the left, and you can toggle through the select as well as the reset button and see a few different items like your trip A and B, your odometer, you have a lap timer, and then if you toggle the bottom one, you can toggle it from your ambient air temperature as well as the coolant temperature. And then on the new generation R6, we do have some manual adjustments up top for these front forks. We have the same starter and kill switch, however we now have a drive mode selector. To the left side we have the same high beams, turn signal, and horn, and then your traction control switch. So if I go ahead and turn the ignition on for these, you can see all the electronics. Like the other one, we had a large central tach and a shift light, then a pretty basic looking screen right here. You can see your drive mode right here, and if I toggle that button on the right side of the steering wheel, you can go between A, B, and a standard mode. And then the traction control icon, I can toggle this up and down, 1, 2, it'll go all the way up into 6 different traction control settings. Then we have the same buttons up here for reset and select. You can toggle this through the trip information, miles per gallon, and things like that. Alright, so to go ahead and do a quick exhaust rev comparison, both of these bikes have a catless mid-pipe. I have the GYTR slip-on tip, which is some sort of a resonator in there. This one just has a straight pipe for the tip, so this should be a little bit louder. So we'll go ahead and turn the ignition on, turn the fuel on. Good sounding bike, of course. Ignition on. And bikes are louder when they don't have a resonator. Let's ride these, or let's ride this one and see if this one is much different than the old bike. Alright guys, so we are now on the 2020 new generation Yamaha R6. Just getting my bearings with it. I already do tell there's some torque in it a little bit more compared to my old bike. I can feel that low RPM pull. A lot louder, as you guys already heard. But it's going to be interesting to see. We'll do a quick pull. I am in mode A and I have traction control at 3. So I think mode A is a pretty good level to be at for a nice little pull against my own R6. And then we'll play on some back roads and talk about the handling with this bike. And then we'll get into the other modes to kind of see what it's like. So, oh, we do have a gear indicator on this as well. So we'll do first gear at 20 miles per hour. Alright, so we'll do another one. Well, I will say the newer bike does have a little bit more get up and go. However, for the other bike being more than 10 years older, it's not crazy difference in power, at least comparing it to a straight line performance test like that. But pretty cool to see this bike. The front wheel did get off the ground a little bit, so this you have to fight a little bit for a wheelie. My bike, I just can't do that. So while it's only like 5 pounds more foot-pound of torque on this bike at 1,000 RPM lower, that does make a huge difference because we're only talking about a 400-something pound machine, you know, 550 with me sitting on it. As far as handling, honestly, like that turn right there, it feels really tight. So I do feel like it feels like a little bit more solid of a machine. This is way louder, like I already said. So we got a good sweeper. I can feel that torque around like 8,000 RPM. Oh wow. The lean in, I think, is a little bit better. Alright, I am noticing a nice little difference in this bike with the handling. It just feels a little bit more tight in the turns. And again, we're talking so many years newer. Now this has 7,000 miles, I have 25,000 miles. And as far as comfort goes, the seat is a little bit more narrow on the gas tank where my legs are straddling. It feels nice and comfortable. These are not the most comfortable bikes out there. I felt ABS kicked on right there, but I find them decently comfortable. Pretty solid feeling for sure. Like really, this is very solid power band. the older R6, you do have to wait for that horsepower to start taking over. Oh yeah. Yeah, this does feel better in the turns. I like actually the narrower gas tank right here, because when I'm tucked down, my elbows have a little bit more room to be closer to the gas tank to keep everything kind of inside the bike instead of having my elbows sticking out more. Wow, this is a nice upgrade. Easy to rev match. There for sure is a difference. I'm not going to play with the traction control settings because I don't really want to drift the bike. We'll do this one more turn and then tone down the modes. But there is absolutely a handling difference. The steering, suspension, the lean in, huge difference for sure. Wow, that low end torque. I'm in 6th gear and that was like, I don't know, 5,000 to 6,000 RPM. And there was a little bit more get up and go. So there is a difference for sure. I actually really am enjoying that. So we'll go to B. This is the baby mode. That's probably why it's B. Oh my gosh. So this feels slower than my bike. This throttle response is very, very delayed. I'll get a little bit slower. 3rd gear. Oh my gosh, full throttle, nothing's happening. Alright, standard mode is kind of like normal. So standard mode doesn't quite feel as sharp as my bike just yet. I think it's similar the way the power delivery is. 2nd gear. So from 2nd gear, it felt like mine with the more torque, but then it started to die off since my bike's got more horsepower. I could totally notice that difference. We'll keep this in the A mode for awesome. This one definitely hits a little bit more torque than mine. And I don't really notice a horsepower difference. I wasn't even, I don't think, getting to 14,000 RPM, even on a little pull. But normal riding, at least under 12, I just noticed a little bit more pep in the step on the newer bike. We'll get back talking about the riding position and comfort aspects. So getting back and going. I do like how the narrower seating position feels at a stop sign like that, because your legs aren't as spread apart. My bike, your legs are a little bit wider, which I do a lot of 200-mile mountain road trips, and my hips do start getting a little sore at the end of the day. This bike being a little bit more narrow, I think it's going to be a little bit more forgiving on your hips if you're riding long distances. But overall, would I spend the extra $5,000? My bike is worth around $4 to $5 grand in its current condition. This bike is around $10,000 brand new. This is closer to $15,000. I would absolutely not run out and spend $10,000 and buy a brand new R6. My bike is amazing. I would not even sell mine to buy this for, you know, an extra $5,000. I don't see $5,000 worth of added fun in this bike. It is a better bike. It handles better. It's sharper. It's tighter. It has more technology. I mean, that ABS is super cool on this really poor road. The power band. I mean, it's a solid machine. Very solid machine for sure. If you are in the market and 10 grand is your budget, I mean, you're going to get a freaking awesome bike. Again, I don't think it's quite twice the bike, but there's some nice differences. So it, of course, is a newer version better. As far as my overall review, great machine. When I end up selling my bike, I will probably go to an R1 because it doesn't make sense, like I said, to spend that much money to get pretty much the same bike with a little bit more torque and a little bit better handling. I'd rather swap it up and get something that has a whole lot more power and is just a completely different bike overall. But at the end of the day, I am a Yamaha fan and I really love this new R6. It's a nice step up, and I think they've done some great upgrades to the modern generation of the R6 to keep it up with the times. If you guys enjoyed today's video, give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned for plenty more content, and then huge shout out to the guys at Champion Car Company, lending one of the guys' street bikes for today's video. The owner of this really enjoys it and has a lot of fun on it as well. So anyways, I'll see you next video.